What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Welcome to Dak Attack. Today we're going to be talking about building immunity. Let's start this off. I want to immediately make a preface. I'm not an anti-masker or anti-science. I mean, a lot of the things I'm talking about are going to be very much backed by science, maybe not the scientific pundits you are hearing on the TV. But just to start off with the whole idea of a vaccine, because that's the biggest thing that's in the talking point, is to wear a mask or not to wear a mask, and the idea of a vaccine. No conversations really in any public outlet or like mass outlet about how to build immunity and actually how to protect yourself. It's basically how to hide until the vaccine comes out. So number one, about the vaccine, this is completely science. Any medical person would back this up. We have not ever successfully created a vaccine that prevents you from contracting an illness that comes from droplets. So the same way that the coronavirus is spread through like breathing in droplets, just like the flu. That's why we never have a year where they say, you know, we got the vaccine, there will be no flu this year. And even if they give you the flu vaccine, they do let you know that you still have a chance of getting it. It's the same reason why the flu also mutates and comes back in new forms, such as the swine flu, the bird flu, the Hong Kong flu. You can keep going back over and over and over again. But basically, we have not successfully created a vaccine for something that is transmitted like that. Things like smallpox, chickenpox, measles, things that are contracted by touch, we are able to create a very effective vaccine, but through droplets, that is just the fucking truth. So I don't know why it keeps that is the main topic of conversation, like it's going to save everything. Even when the vaccine comes out, like regardless if people choose not to do it, which there will be many that don't. I don't personally get a flu shot every year, and I probably won't get a coronavirus shot when it comes out. Even if everybody were to take it, it's not going to eliminate it. It would still be around. Just going off of history and the past scientific evidence of our ability to create a successful vaccine that prevents the transmission of droplet spread viruses. It's just something we. With that being said, you know, the whole concept of masks. I mean, from everything that I look up, it seems like basically it's pretty simple how this spreads. Generally, it has to do with the volume of exposure, and you know, being in a place with a high, you know, level of coronavirus floating around and you consistently breathing it in. I think a lot of people have a misconception that, you know, if one particle comes up your noselet, you automatically get the coronavirus. But most viruses and diseases don't really spread like that. For example, HIV, one sexual exposure, you have a 1 in 500 chance of catching it. So that's just not how transmission works, and volume is something that is definitely being seen. So when I go outside, personally, I don't wear a mask when I'm outside, because with all of the airflow, all of the information about vitamin D and how it kind of kills the coronavirus, that is just not where it's typically being spread. All the places that opened up and their cases rose, they're opening up things like restaurants, bars, offices, places where people are sitting for hours and breathing with no airflow. And then obviously you're gonna breathe in a large amount of that shit. So social distancing is the most effective thing. And a lot of this hand washing, mask, like super emphasis is really just, in my view, a political piece. If you're in a store, if you're in a small enclosure, yes, you should wear a mask because it's going to prevent the volume from coming out. But if you're outside and the wind is blowing, like, how bad does somebody's breath stink outside compared to inside? Like, that's how you should just think about that. But I digress. How do you actually build immunity if the things that the government's saying are not really helping you to actually protect yourself from this? Is just basically ways to kind of, one, I feel like honestly push an agenda, but then two, it's really just when you have a mass amount of people, you want to give them some things to alleviate themselves. So washing your hands and wearing a mask makes people more comfortable, like they're protected. that's something to say. Even though things like, you know, drinking 8 glasses of water, eating your greens, like simple shit, exercising every day, those aren't really things that are promoted, but those are the main things that are really going to build your immunity. And if you do come in contact with the coronavirus, which they're saying 90% of the population within the next year is going to come in contact with, you want to be prepared for yourself. Like, fuck what, you know, everybody else is saying about, you know, wearing your mask and putting on antibacterial soap and putting alcohol on your hands every 25 seconds, which the washing your hands thing, I mean, there's just a ton of evidence that that doesn't really do shit for any sickness. Like, this is medical knowledge that that is a marginal way of stopping the cold, the flu, etc. It's not like, unless you're doing like a dissection on somebody, or and then like touching your face and about to eat, like that is just a very small chance of you catching the virus in that way. The way most people catch the virus is that they're in a room with people that have it for long periods of time. Like, it's just as simple as that. It's not like people are accidentally catching it because one particle flew in the air and they somehow breathed it in and now they're sick. It's like you were exposed for a period of time to somebody that has it. Like, that's just how most sicknesses spread. With that being said, the most effective way is social distancing. It's not wearing a mask, it's not washing your hands, it's not being in contact with a large amount of people day in and day out for long periods of time. That is the most effective way to prevent yourself from ever catching it. But now, to protect yourself from, if you do catch it, it's, as I said, living a healthy lifestyle, working out, vitamin D. It's been big. It's been intensely showed to help. But now I want to get to the next part. So that's how you build your immunity health wise. But one big other part is, how do you build your immunity economically? Like, when we think about this, you know, the health implications that this virus is going to have are going to, you know, come and go. Like, I think a lot of the health implications are going to be gone pretty much in the next 18 months. Really, the big issue was the influx that it threw on the healthcare system. But if we, you know, stay under a limited lockdown, I'm in New York here, and you don't start opening up places where people can go to spread the virus, I think we will keep it, you know, somewhat contained, and not put that pressure on the health system. But the economic damage and the economic disease is really what's going to be widespread throughout. I don't think these layoffs are done. I don't think these cuts are done. I think businesses are going to keep getting leaner and leaner, and I think this is going to keep going down. Like, it's not just a product of shit closing down, because you have to look at it from the perspective of the velocity of money and money moving around. When money is moving quickly, you know, you can be a little bit more liberal with your spending and add people to your team, for example, that, you know, you're not sure if they're going to work out. Now we're in the standpoint where I'm in sales and I'm calling people all day. People have money, but they're not willing to spend their money on something they don't think is a sure shot, or they don't think is an absolute need. So whether that's a person or a solution, they're holding on to their money a lot tighter. So economically, this is going to be in the spirit, I have to see, for the next 2 years at least, where there's going to be a ton of people out of work. So people are going to be willing to take work for lower pay, putting employers at a very, very high position where they can pretty much, you know, kind of get labor for bargain rates. And then it's also going to put, you know, people in a position where it's not very clear that your position is producing value, that they're going to get rid of you just so they can keep their cash flow up. And that's something I did experience in my last role. So in terms of economic immunity, the main things is, one, securing a job and your work ethic. Like, you have to prove that you're valuable. I just see this happening at least for the next 6 months, that, you know, people that cannot prove their value are going to be wiped out. Certain positions that can at all be looked at as redundant are going to be wiped out. A lot of these people that were furloughed and laid off, that were, you know, kind of promised that they're going to be hired back, are not going to be hired back, because the business can run without them, and the business doesn't have the cash flow to bring them on, so they need to find a new solution to get that done. The next thing is working on an industry that's going to be relevant and leveling up your skills. It kind of goes to the first thing. You have to prove that your skill set is valuable and not going away, because there's certain jobs, and I'm kind of working in recruiting now in terms of the type of business that I'm still selling SaaS, software as a service platforms, but one of the rules that I'm seeing is like in terms of marketing and being able to demand generation marketing, that has not gone down in terms of what people will pay for that, because it's a very scalable role. Same thing with sales positions. A lot of the sales positions haven't gone all the way down. I think part of that has to do with the fact that price of living hasn't gone down, so people can't take a pay that's lower than what they can pay for rent. But I digress. Let's focus on the marketing, for example. It's one person that can bring in a lot of leads that can lead to a lot of revenue for the business. So even if you're paying $200,000, all in for this person, the amount that they might be bringing back is going to be so much higher that their value is going to offset. The same thing as I mentioned with sales. Like, there's a reason why I was able to find a job in this market, and other people, if you're a waiter or if you're doing some other kind of job, that you might not be able to find a job, because you have to be honest. Like, is your industry and is your skill set relevant today, and is it going to be relevant in the next 2 years? If not, you're going to be one of the first people on the chopping block. And then going back to the first one, if your work ethic isn't there, if you're not proving your value, you're going to be the next one on the chopping block. They can call it being laid off, they can call it whatever they want, but honestly, they're cutting the people that are least valuable first. And that's just the name of the game, and that's just the system we're in, and maybe that'll change, but you can't bank on that. You gotta make your decisions for what it is today. And the last one is building your own business. That's the reason why you see me basically moonlighting to kind of put shit up like this. I'm actually writing a book at the same time, and all my money that I'm parking away in terms of savings is all going into the real estate business that I'm planning to build. And I'm making moves on that already in terms of where I'm going to live this upcoming year, in terms of trying to save as much as possible, so that in 2021, when a lot of people feel this pain, because you got to look at it also through the lens of like, how is this really going to play out? So I was at an organization that cut pay and then laid off. Many organizations have reduced pay for pretty much all employees, and then people are going to be laid off. If you bought too much house for your wallet and you got your pay cut, you're already behind the 8 ball. But imagine if you get laid off now you have to get rid of shit. And it's sad to say, but as the old adage goes, when there's blood on the streets, buy property. There's going to be blood on the streets in 2021. If people think 2020 was hard, I heard Glendon Cameron talking about this. 2021 is going to be worse for a lot of people if they don't really heed those things that I'm saying in terms of the economic immunity. You really got to find, one, a secure job that's going to be around in an industry that's going to be relevant. You got to increase your work ethic to be valuable. You got to increase your skill set to be valuable. And then at the end, you want to start your own business so you're completely recession proof. Because when you're controlling your own ship, I'm not saying you wouldn't be affected by the pandemic. Everybody was affected by the pandemic, but I would much rather die by my own sword than by the direction of another captain. And that's kind of what happened to me in my last job, where I felt like I had a viable pipeline, and my CEO, literally with no discussion, no nothing, I didn't get to prove myself for Q2 to say, you think these are what the numbers I'm going to bring in, and then I'm going to bring in these. I was a top producing account executive, just got whacked. So just from that experience alone, it really showed me in terms of the first part, the secure job and the work ethic, that it's got to be evident. There can't be any fucking questions. You might not even have the ability to prove yourself by doing your job to save your job. So that's why in the end, you want to be parking your money and parking your strategy to eventually create your own economic boat, if you will. And if we're all sailing the seas and there's rough seas, at least if it's your boat and maybe it's a smaller boat, you can be a little bit more nimble. With the Titanic, they hit the iceberg. Maybe you could, whip it out and not hit the iceberg. But now I'm getting into my analogies, which I can get crazy on. So that's it for this one. Build your immunity, health wise, economic wise, and just really all kind of wise. You got to be wise. like the chips, stack them. But that's it for this one. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. You fuck with the vibe. Welcome to the tribe. Until next time.